Morning, guys. Hopefully this doesn't. Oh, there we go. A little echoey.
It's not bad.
Nah. And you guys get some humidity in Virginia fairly early in the year. Ooh. Ready when you are? Yeah? We're live. Ooh. Morning, everybody. Thanks for coming out here. Excited to be at the DVG Integral Show here in Richmond, Virginia. And I'm here to talk a little bit about remote collaboration workflows, some of the technology challenges, some of the workflow challenges, and then how we at Studio Network Solutions have tried to solve a lot of these for our clients. But most important, the way we try to solve them in an affordable and predictable way, as opposed to just throwing a lot of technology and racking up tech debt and spend. So we're here to really talk about creativity and collaboration from anywhere. So certainly some of that with video is going to come from editing. We're going to have to go through some of the challenges so that we can figure out, first we have to define the problem, right? Otherwise we're not going to know how to overcome it. And then we're going to talk about kind of the three primary models at this point. Coming out of the pandemic, certainly cloud became a huge thing. Well, at least accelerated. It was already becoming a huge thing. Then we still have on-premise, and we're going to talk a little bit about hybrid workflows, and kind of this is all about where that data lives. Where am I hitting that central point? Is it best to have it up in the cloud? Is it best to have it on-prem? Maybe a little bit of both. Then we're going to talk about remote workflows. How do I get access to this stuff? Because it doesn't really matter, right? At the end of the day, the internet connects not only the cloud to your endpoints, but it also connects your building to your endpoints. It's just about, again, divvying out resources. And we're talking about some case studies with SNS clients who are actually using some of the workflows in practice. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how they found success, and hopefully something we can all learn from. So let's talk about editing from anywhere. Well, anywhere gets bigger and bigger every day, or the world gets smaller, I guess, depending upon which angle you want to look at it from. First, we start obviously in the studio. With the pandemic, we started editing from home. Now I have more and more clients hiring talent the world over. And since we're working so hard on colonizing Mars, we're going to have to get there at some point, I would imagine, as well. So let's go over some of the challenges. We're all in video. Video, as we all know, is not small. So not only do we have to deal with data and streaming data and moving data around, we have to deal with moving large amounts of data around the world. That's a map of the physical internet lines. So if I want to go hit India, it's not like there's just Wi-Fi blanketing Earth at this point. So I've got to trace any of these routes and numerous network hops where it's very hard to maintain consistency of speed, consistency of streaming, which is fairly important for video as well. We don't always have control of our bandwidth, depending upon where we're at, not just within the United States, but anywhere in the world. I'm at the mercy of the endpoint ISP. I don't know what the upload's going to be. So if I'm out, I have a client working on a documentary actually in Africa at the moment. Not a lot of upload speed in the field in Africa when you're taking pictures of wildlife. So trying to get that data set back. How do we do that? How do we remember to do it? How do we have time? And then, of course, we're going to hit the public network. And we're going to trust our ISP to have absolute security for all of our content. Obviously, extreme distance, latency, and then the biggest challenge for any of you who have tried to deploy cloud services for media is there's kind of an opacity to the cost. figuring out where that resource is being used. Am I transcoding video in the cloud after it's there for distribution? What does that cost? How many hours of video? Because cloud often charges us per gigabyte or per processor cycle or things like that. So on a particularly busy day, my budget, the best laid plans. Let's put it that way. But then we also have to deal with the workflow challenges. So it's not just the tech that we have to overcome, it's the people themselves that are collaborating. Do they call their files the same things? Do they follow a standard folder structure that we can link to across, different NLEs from anywhere? Are we replicating media up from them? And then of course the waiting game because of the ISP and because of, again, that very limited upload speed. You'll notice that most ISPs quote you download. I will give you a gig. Well, try pushing files that way. And as we have more endpoints connected, we have to be able to push and pull from everywhere on that side. So let's talk about the ways to do this. We can put everything in the cloud, in which case that means virtualizing not just your media storage, which is again a large data set charged per gig, potentially hundreds of terabytes, if not petabytes, depending upon where you're at. We have to deal with getting that data into the cloud. We have to deal with security, setting things up, and then we have to worry about cloud waste. Did we set something up in the cloud that we no longer use? Because whether you're using it or not, you're still getting billed for it when it comes down to that side. Now the upshot is with a cloud, you can get at it from anywhere, right? It doesn't matter where I am in the world, as long as I connect to the cloud host and to the server, I've got a route, I'm going to get there, and I don't have to maintain any hardware on-prem. I think what we're going to see today, one of the things we're going to talk about is it's good to have kind of both, because my computer that I'm showing this to you on, when it sits here not doing anything, I'm not paying for it. I already paid it. So having this kind of idea of where's the process happening, what can I put on the edge and a cost that I can control, I think is very important as we try to design these remote workflows. Next step is keep it all on-prem, the other extreme, right? So nice thing here is we have complete control of our network. We can put 10 gig lines in the wall, we can put 25, we can put 100 gig backbones in. We can guarantee quality of service to all the endpoints. We can handle much larger data sets and video sets. Downsides here are obviously maintaining the equipment, technical expertise, and then obviously off-site recovery as well. What happens if everything's on-prem and the building burns down? I mean, don't burn down your buildings. That's a general rule, but we never know. But there are ways, even in an entirely on-prem environment, to create secure tunnels. We can use VPN. At SNS, we've actually created our own VPN with file acceleration built in. So we've actually done a lot of data sculpting using a standard network protocol. I'm sure many of you in the room are familiar with UDP accelerated file transfer for delivery to different networks. There's a variety of services that use UDP. But UDP is all about copy. It's not about streaming. At SNS, we use standard network protocols, again, that we've optimized with our VPN, which is a cloud host. No data necessarily lives in that cloud. But we've done the data sculpting to get closer to line speed. So even if you don't have great upload, I can at least get all of it with our service on that side. Next, we can have the best of both worlds, right? A little from column A, a little from column B, hybrid. And I think from a cost control perspective and understanding your workflow, this is really what we're seeing a lot of in the market. Again, at the outset of the pandemic, everything had to go cloud. But again, we're virtualizing data storage, we're virtualizing workstations, we're paying for our computers by the hour at that point. Versus we've spent a lot of money in most organizations on edit computers that are fairly powerful. So offloading things from them is not necessarily the most cost-effective thing to do, unless we're all going to start editing on Chromebooks, which is okay if you want to do it, but not my preferred way. The advantage of the hybrid workflow is that we do kind of get the best of both worlds, right? I can control that cost, I can own the storage, I can keep my primary data set online, I can use a much lower cost tier of cloud for disaster recovery or just for project hosting, and we can start to move project files around and proxies around where we can control the transcode as opposed to having to move the entire large data set. As 4K comes and now 8K, and I think Sony released a 16K camera last year, which I'm sure is gorgeous. But the data set rises exponentially, right? The more data, the more color depth. We don't make our videos larger linearly, they grow logarithmically. So the need for ever-present and ever-growing data storage is important. So let's talk about how to overcome some of these challenges and kind of get into it. The first one for us at SNS is Share Browser. This solves a lot of our workflow challenges, and we believe that software, when you buy hardware, should be free. So we do this in unlimited fashion. For larger groups, larger organizations, educational environments, this is a huge deal. So Share Browser is our award-winning asset management software. This can help you tag, index, find, and more important, enforce the nomenclature across these remote sites. The server, the central point, becomes the source of truth. Next up, we have Slingshot. Slingshot is an automation engine. People, especially people working remotely, don't remember to do things all the time. They don't remember to upload their project. One thing a computer is incredibly good at, outside of processing, is it never forgets. It does what it's told. So by having automations that can see all the remote sites, instead of trusting someone or having to worry about someone uploading something, the central point, whether it's cloud-based with the Evo Cloud or whether it's on-prem over a secure VPN connection, can actually watch your users and say, oh, you changed a project. I'm going to bring that back. I'm going to go ahead and email someone else. So being able to set up these kind of automations is critical to remote workflows because, well, again, as people, we make mistakes. Computers only do what they're told, for now. They might start doing things on their own. It's a little concerning. Last but not least, we have Nomad. So Nomad is a remote workflow utility, and again, all of this is free with all of our hardware. And can be used in concert because we use standard network protocols with other existing legacy investments for architecture. So whether that be a cloud architecture or whether that be an on-prem architecture, we can kind of come in over the top and bring these tools to bear. So we have to go anywhere now. Obviously, it all starts with ingest, right? As we're doing here, streaming could be part of your ingest. Could be simultaneous. We're recording the stream, we're going to use it later, and that's all going to come back to a central point. This central point could be the cloud. Obviously, upload's going to take a little longer here. Could be an on-prem server. Could be a mix of both. Could two-step, right? Again, we're going to be able to get data in more quickly within a network that we can control. Well, now we need to get home. At home or on location, we're going to use Share Browser, we're going to use Nomad, and we're going to use Slingshot. Slingshot's going to be transcoding those files as they come in. Share Browser is going to use its native extensions inside of popular production applications like Adobe Premiere or Blackmagic Resolve to allow editors to search the content that's hit the central point, link to the high-res, and automatically download a low-res proxy, automatically rename those proxies to become path-based to enforce our naming conventions, and then work in an offline mode and automatically link that into the project. What if we don't have network connectivity, though? That's where edge workflows come in. So one of the things we do at SNS, and you guys can see this actually over in the DVG hall, this is what's powering our booth today. We've released this little mod box. It has all the capabilities of the larger storage, but it can work independently. So in the absence of communication back to the central point, I can be transcoding in the field. I can be prepping in the field. I can be logging in the field. And as someone who comes from post, I'm a huge fan of production doing logging. Saves me a little bit of time, selfishly. But when this guy can see internet, or when it connects back to the internet, or when it connects back to the facility, the automations running on this end will now push instead of having the central point needing to pull. So it can kind of check every minute, be working in the field. We don't have to wait to ingest. All of the processing is being done on the edge, outside of the network, at your workstation, things like that. And then, of course, offline editorial. Our little dotted line here represents a lack of network connectivity. By downloading the entire proxy, rather than caching portions of it, which is a common technology for remote workflow right now, caching assumes A, your workstation has a large enough space within it to cache. I don't know how many of you, shop for new Macs or anything this year, but adding storage to a Mac or adding additional RAM can be quite costly. And more important, it has to replicate across every workstation. Every workstation has to be able to do this. So if I have 20 people, take the incremental cost of your workstation and multiply it by 20. Whereas with this, I can control it in the central point, download the entire clip as a proxy, and hop on a plane and work completely offline. And that's something like this. By having the entire proxy working, every one of these locations can also continue working in the absence of all network connectivity. Because that's the other thing we have to worry about with remote. Anyone ever lose power? What happens if your lead editor loses power an hour before air and they're working remotely? You have a problem. With this, because they already have the proxy, they can continue working. Hopefully cell is still going. We have different communication routes back. They can hop onto a 5G hotspot and get that spot back and get ready to go and deliver that file. So redundancy within network connectivity is also important. Is it the internet? Is it cellular? Those are not the same. Having both is critical, just like having a backup satellite uplink years ago. And then again with the automations, when the internet comes back, we can kind of see our bidirectional arrow, everything will flow back. The other thing here that's important is the alerting. When that stuff comes back, we can set up automatic alerts for those back in the office to know. Because few of us, well, probably none of us in this room, are psychic. So if you send me a file, I don't know that it came in. Someone has to tell me. You have to send me an email. Now the computer itself knows if this file comes in, these people must be alerted. This department, if I'm going to air, broadcast needs to know. If I'm going in post, the client needs to know, or the account manager needs to know. But that communication is incredibly important. So when we talk about this, we kind of see a map of all the possibilities. We can see, again, different media file types that Evo can ingest and transcode on that side. We can come into the central point, which can be a server. It can go out to Evo Cloud. So we could set up a proxy workflow to both. At SNS, we don't think you should pick one or the other, or have to pick one or the other. We try to provide a product lineup that lines up not only with your budgets, but also the options for where you need to be. You know, if everybody's kind of local but working from home, a central point in an office is great. If we're talking about a truly global collaboration, you're going to need some element of the cloud, and you're going to need it to kind of sync back and control. So you can see we have extensions in post-production and workflows for every major application. Now let's talk a little bit about how clients are using this in the field. Borderless Films is interesting. They came across, they have offices in Toronto, but they also have editorial in India. So one of the challenges here was, okay, well everything's shot in Canada, it's shot locally, how do I get the editorial team this data? And we could do it through automation, we can say move the high res, but in this case, they leveraged our proxy workflow. And the most important thing is here, from a human perspective, again, I only prep something once. It goes into a place and the computer knows what to do with it. We have a preset workflow that is the same, that gives us standardization every time. My personal favorite is here. The National Hockey League, the NHL, have actually presented us with a very unique challenge. So not all NHL games are broadcast by the league. Some are. Things like the Winter Classic, things like the All-Star Game become league events, right? They're not specific to the team. So the challenge they presented us with was we go out, we produce this, we have a truck. We're going to ingest everything that we shoot during the game to the broadcast truck. However, social media needs it, they're remote, and more important, when that truck gets turned off, when that game ends, it gets on the road. There's no longer consistent connectivity back. So how do we get these files up for social media to work? How do we get this up so that we can provide packages? We can't wait for the high res to get all the way back to New York. On that side. So what we did here was we did the hybrid. We did a mix. In the truck, there's an Evo. It transcodes proxies into a lower variant of ProRes. It uploads to the cloud. The editors engage the proxies as a mezzanine format, so a format they can render against in the cloud so that they can get their packages turned around. And then when the truck gets home, plug it into the side of the building. The high-res dumps in the same exact file folder path that it was. Media links are immediately reestablished because nothing really changed, right? We're kind of tricking the software. Nashville Public Library had to go hybrid. Again, if that place burns down, there's a lot of stuff there that's hard to replace. So what we did here was just use the automation to get things up to Amazon. They chose S3, Glacier, as their offsite backup. And what happens here that's so cool is you can schedule it. Have any of you ever run into a network slowdown anywhere in your world? No, it never happens, right? It's because everybody's kind of working at the same time, and network inherently is a shared resource. So even within an on-prem network, with this and with Slingshot, we're able to schedule when these large file copies happen. Because what happens when we increase the backbone of a network is we also increase the possibility of slowing that whole thing down. So I put 100 gig in the back, and someone kicks off a 100 terabyte copy, everyone else is going to feel that. So we do this with bandwidth throttling on the server side. We also do it by scheduling what hours. Don't do this stuff between midnight and 6 a.m. But by scheduling it, we also don't have to wait for the complete copy. We can say, all right, between midnight and 6 a.m., move this stuff. Wherever you leave off, though, pick that up the next day. I don't want to have to, again, track what got copied or have someone working third shift. Mirror Studios does a large, this is a Dolby certified Atmos room, and they do a lot of project-based stuff in post. So the asset management, the ability to search and find legacy content is what became important to them. The MAM became very important. And again, all of these index, all these proxies, everything that's set is set automatically. So it's not something, well, it used to take hours for a DIT or an assistant editor to prep things and get things organized and spread across the base. Now it takes minutes. I just copy files once and I'm done. Now I want to take a pause and kind of talk about some of the stuff that we announced at NAB. This is exciting. This is us moving the needle forward and continuing to develop our award-winning product lineup. So here we have the mod. This is the one I was just talking about as an edge device, and the one we can see over in the hall when we're done with this. 7 pounds, fits in a backpack. I've flown with these things across 3 continents at this point. It's full of SSDs. That little box can represent 30 terabytes of storage. It includes our cloud VPN. It also includes a carrying case and a VESA mount. One of the things I really like about this versus just an external field drive is when it comes home to my network, the transcoding I was mentioning that happens on our box, the more EVOs you have, we spread the transcode job across all of them. So this is about capacity utilization on your network. What happens here with the mod, if I come home with a hard drive, I dump my hard drive. The hard drive goes on the shelf. It's now doing nothing for my workflow. It's ancillary to the process. With the mod, I plug it into the network. It may have transcoded itself already, but if I have a new job come in, my network can now use its processors. So just by being there, it's still doing something, even if it's not storing data. And if I unplug it, I take it in the field, fine. It's not there to help transcode anymore. The central point does it. I come back, it automatically re-engages itself. So again, not something I have to think about as a network engineer, not something I have to toggle on and off on that side. Now we'll take a look at the previewed stuff that'll be shipping later this year. In the MAM, one of the top requests we got were markers and subclips. So you can now do time-based commenting inside of here. The most important part of this is it's seamless to the NLE. So whether you go to Resolve or whether you go to Adobe Premiere, the timecode markers and subclips that you create in the MAM will be there for you in the way you expect them. You don't have to recreate them in the NLE. We've added some additional cloud storage options for clients of all sizes. Amazon is obviously, Amazon, Azure are kind of the big ones that people think about. But when clients talk about cloud, especially kind of some of our more boutique post-shop clients and things like that, they could mean box. Corporations can mean Microsoft OneDrive as cloud. So now we have the ability to automate to and from any of those locations. One of the big ones this year is AES 256 encryption, both at rest and in transit, to protect your data wherever it may be, whether it lives in our cloud, whether it lives on your premises. Encryption keys allow for a heightened level of security, obviously, in large-scale corporate environments. There's a bit of a speed hit when you do it. You got to overbuild it a little bit because you're trying to decrypt data in real time, but we've figured it out. The same thing we did with the SNS VPN with some of the sculpting is we've really done a lot of testing to help our customers know where the lines are for that encryption. How many streams of video we're going to be able to get? How important is the security? Do you want to turn it on? The other thing we've added, and this is for a lot of our Hollywood Post clients as well as large Post clients in New York, but can be very beneficial in creative ways with our API, is the SMB audit log viewer. So the server itself will actually track every file interaction, everyone who touches it. In news broadcast, for you guys, this could be when did the file play? If your playout server doesn't have it, does it have that spot in it? You could query that as an API. In the case of highly confidential content, how did this movie get out early? I can prove it wasn't my fault, or whoever our client's fault. It's never my fault on that side. And then, of course, replication throttling, the ability to control the bandwidth on that 100 gig backbone I was just talking about. You do these jobs, never take more than 10 gigs of my backbone to do that. By controlling that at the server point, as a server-initiated transfer, we don't have to worry about complex switch configuration. We can just do it in a simple UI. So, quick review. You can deal with an all-cloud workflow, you can deal with an on-prem, or you can deal with a hybrid workflow. At SNS, we have products for all of them. You can choose one path or the other. You can mix and match. The things that are important here, though, are speed, scalability, and the ability to enforce a workflow. Storage is just storage. Without a workflow tool, you trust people. People make mistakes. And in the case of SNS, all of our products, whether it be cloud, on-prem, or hybrid, are all built specifically for media and entertainment. So it's all designed for streaming high-resolution files, moving big data around in the most efficient way possible. With that, if you guys would like to learn more, check us out, snseva.com. Come see us back in the hall here. I got 3 mods running, indexing each other, transcoding together. Throw some data at me. We'll see how long it takes. And we'll go from there. Oh, there you go.
Appreciate it.
You can also reach out to me directly. That's my cell phone number. Feel free to text, email, call. For those of you on the live stream, keep it to normal business hours. For those of you in the room, feel free to call anytime. I know when you guys are awake. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much for the time. All right, I'll see you all in there. Just put this right next to the speaker and see it there. For the next guy.
Great.
Still on though, be careful.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'm muted.
So